So let's start changing the colors on our site. So once again, I'll dive into Beaver Builder. And what I'd like to start is by changing the color here, this row background, changing the background of these boxes with the background of some of these titles, so they're no longer a red. So let's start at the top. Now, if we dive straight into the row settings here, we should notice that when we come down to the background, it's set to a color, and that color is set, and we can go ahead and change it and test it out, and we'll be able to see those changes live. Now, the very useful feature of Beaver Builder here is these color presets. And it means if there's a color that you're using again and again, you can just click on that color preset and then choose it, and makes it nice and easy. And we've still got in ColorMind up here, we've got our values here. So what you can do is you can select that value, and we'll come back over here and replace it with that text. And you'll notice that that color is now showing up, and this little plus button will add it to our presets. So now if I click on presets, you'll see we've got the first of our colors that we're going to be reusing again and again. So I can go ahead and remove any of these presets that I'm not going to be using. I might keep white there, it's always a useful one to have. And I'll go and I'll grab those 5 values. So there's our dark blue, our feature blue, add that to the presets. I'll grab this lighter blue, add to the presets. This leathery kind of color, add that. And then finally this last one as well. Let's call that caramel for the sake of putting a label on it. Okay, so we've got all of our values here ready to use. And now the trick is just to be consistent. So we've got a background row here. If I select a nice light blue, and then anytime I see that they've used a background color that's a nice kind of off-white kind of color, if we just make sure we stick with those same kind of values. So I'll do the same thing here. I'll scroll down to this background color, click on my presets, and choose that blue. I'll save that. Did I save that one up here? Yeah. Okay, so that's looking good. Let's go with these boxes now. And these are slightly different because the way that we've set these up, I've mentioned to you that we've got rows in the background, and then these are modules, but we've got modules sitting on top of columns here, and there's 3 columns. So sometimes you'll actually find the setting for color in here under Edit Column. If I click that and then click on the column settings, this is where you'll find your background colors for things like this. So I'll go ahead and I'll change this one to say the dark blue. I'll save that. Might go to the next row, and maybe I'll make this one my middle of the range blue. And then my last column, I think I'll make that my caramel kind of color. Okay, that's looking good. Now I wouldn't mind changing the color here of these titles. So rather than this red, I might stick with that really dark brown for that. So I'll just click on it. And then we need to look for the value in here that changes the color of this title. And we've got options up here for all sorts of stuff. Typography, there it is. So our title, the color is set to red, so we can just change that now to that dark brown. Yeah, that looks great. So I'll save that, and I'll do the same thing from my ebooks over here. Wonderful. That's looking much more consistent. Change this title as well. Sometimes you might find options for this under, style. Other times it might be under general, and other times under typography. Each module will display it in a slightly different place, so you just need to have a bit of fishing around. There's hundreds and hundreds of different modules, so often they'll be in slightly different places. But that's looking really good. I think the last thing I'd like to change is that background color here. Let's get rid of that red, and maybe I'll make that my dark blue. Yeah, that looks very strong. Excellent. I think that's looking really nice. Maybe to change as well, I wouldn't mind just changing that color of this button here, because I think that would be more consistent as well if we stuck with something out of our color palette. You'll find this option in Link. We just scroll down and we can change all of the colors here. So we'll just set the background color to that brown. And we should be able to hit save. And now we've got a nice consistent looking page. That's wonderful. Now, a wonderful trick that you're going to like, let's make it so we can read this text. And a way to do that, there's lots of different ways, but one way that I really like is to go up and edit this image here. And what we can do is, instead of changing the image itself, it would be great to put a background overlay over the top. So look at this, if we overlay type, select a color, and what you see a lot of people do is choose a black. So you've got a black over the top of that image, and then just grab this slider here to dial back the transparency. And by just making that image a little bit darker, all of a sudden our text and message just pops out, which is great. So that's what it was. And this is kind of at 50%. And what's really nice as well is, I'll just bring that up again. And instead of using a black, we could actually grab, like our blue, and once again dial back the transparency. And then there's something about that image style, if we stay consistent with that across our site, that'll feel really nice. So that was one place we did it. Also, this would be nice to make this a different color as well. So once again, I might go down to the overlay, and I'll select my overlay color to be that blue, and I'll just dial back the transparency back to halfway. And that's looking really effective. So already we've got a really nice looking site. Now you might not have nice consistent images to use like Brad does here, but this is the next thing I'd like to show you, where we can get an access to about 300,000 high resolution royalty free images to use straight from your dashboard. So we'll do that next.